Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies that help us to live longer, healthier, and more purposeful lives. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. This episode is a replay of an episode of the We Have a Spiritual Problem podcast. My guest is Teopixqui Dez, pastor of the Colorado Psychedelic Church, a community that blends sacred plant medicine with spiritual practice in the heart of modern America. As debates rage over legalization, mental health, and the ethics of altered states, Pastor Dez offers perspective rooted in ritual, tradition, and the search for divine connection. Psychedelics have a long history in spiritual practice among shamanic tribes, indigenous groups, and early civilizations. Psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy is now an emerging therapeutic approach that combines the use of psychedelics and psychotherapy for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder and treatment-resistant depression. Are psychedelics a spiritual cure we've forgotten, or a dangerous detour? Can they help us to age well? Can you just share the origin story of the Colorado Psychedelic Church, and what spiritual problem were you trying to address when you found it?
Absolutely. So the kind of backstory all about this is, 3 years ago, I woke up and was ready to opt out, ready to kill myself. I was not lost in my depression. I wasn't overwhelmed by life. I was just simply not happy. And the clarity of that moment was terrifying because it wasn't today's a bad day if I just get through this day. It was just this numbness, right? I pride myself on being more of a scientist. I'm like, okay, I did counseling for years. I have my degrees in psychology. I said, okay, if somebody told me this, I would tell them, okay, one last try. If you're really that certain, one last try. So this is when we're starting to get a lot more of the research coming back up about the effects of psilocybin mushrooms on its actual ability to combat depression and anxiety. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go online, I'm going to order these spores, and I'm going to illegally grow these mushrooms because if I'm ready to die, what else do I really have to lose? It took, 6 to 8 weeks to actually get some mushrooms grown up. In that time, I'm doing all this reading, and the day came and I said, okay, these are going to make me better, or I'm going to be more confident in my decision. Well, I'm here today. Because obviously those mushrooms saved my life. And I do just 2 grams, a small trip once a month to go ahead and kind of get my brain regulated. Well, here in Colorado, SB 23290, which decriminalized psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, iboga, and mescaline, that was going to go into effect earlier this year. So, last year. I thought it'd be fun to maybe open up a little spore shop, kind of say, hey, mushrooms did something for me. Maybe I can be a part of this movement. So I'm sitting at my bar. I have my 2 grams of mushroom tea, and I take that, and it's, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and yeah, there it is. Starting to feel that in my eyes a little bit, right? I stand up, I get 2 steps, and all of a sudden, I find myself in this forest. Now, I don't know if I misweighed it. I don't know why. 2 grams should have been lay in bed, watch a movie, giggle for a few hours, and be fine. But there I am standing in this forest. There I am, maybe 10, 15 feet from me is a silhouette, 3D, 2D figure. It's a shadow of a person, but there's no fear. I remember the feeling of the sun on my scalp, the smell of the grass in my nostrils. Like it was all of these different experiences. Well, I see this figure. It stands up because it was crouched over, and I realized, okay, it's a person. Their head turns towards me, and the second our eyes meet, there's the whole conversation. Oh, of course. I'm in Mexico. You're one of my ancestors. You use these, and I realize the ground is covered in grass and mushrooms, these big, almost like cartoon, vibrant mushrooms. You use these to heal your people, and I'm supposed to do the same. I'm not spiritual. The universe spoke to me through psychology and science and logic. And you know what? I will tell you that I spent more of my life as a rather shitty atheist. As, somebody who would proselytize this lack of faith against people who are proselytizing. Like that somehow made me better. You become what you hate in that sense. Yeah. Next morning I wake up, I'm in bed upstairs. I don't even remember how I got upstairs, and I had a panic attack that pretty much lasted a whole day of what the heck was that? I don't speak Spanish, I'm Mexican. My dad worked, 60, 70 hours to support the family. He's awesome. He's incredible. But it came at a cost. And I was not raised with my culture like that. So to have this sudden, like, why would the universe, what was this? Why that? Why? It kind of sent me into a spiral. And in that moment, and I'm to kind of tie that together, in that moment, I'm realizing I don't have spirituality, that I am devoid of this. Like in my absence of being raised with the like Judaism of my mother, the Catholicism of my father, I don't have a good foundation there. And I filled that void with this atheism, right? But I follow psychology, and that is a form of science. That is something that we're saying that, as we understand the world, these are these rules. And that sounds kind of like faith as well, right? So as I'm wrestling with this, what is this? What is this? Literally mid panic attack, mid sob, and I just stop. And it's just clarity. It's like, okay, but I have the answer. The answer is to go like help, to heal, to do something. Why am I getting caught up on the question? Is the question really that important if I have this answer? Because somewhere between the hard science of taking a psychedelic plant or fungus and having that throw these hallucinations in my mind, synesthesia intercepting these different senses and making me experience this kind of kaleidoscope of emotions and sensations. On this side of it, the physicality that I pilot, the what I am, is bound by a set sense of senses. And what if this opens up that cockpit and you're able to come out as the who you are? And the who you are is tied to different senses. So what if on this side of it, my who, my soul, whatever you want to call that, was displaced and was able to interact with somebody through what, the what is constrained by time. So what if I met an ancestor in a timeless place who probably was also tripping, and that's why we were able to meet? And wrestling with that and realizing that the truth is somewhere here, that somewhere in between that, that's what happened. And in that moment, like, my spirituality was born. This idea of like, okay, what if there really is no distinction between the psychological and the spiritual? What if it's kind of like Mad Libs, where we have this concept and we all put different words in there? And to stop and to think that I realized that it's not a matter of finding faith. It's a matter of recognizing it. Because it's already there. There's already something inside of you that answers unanswerable things, that looks for the invisible threads that kind of tie things together, because we recognize that the world is only as understood as we understand.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast.
And to stop and to think that, tell George Washington that giant lizards roam the earth, and he would say no. And science at the time would say no, because they hadn't found them yet. Yeah. This idea that what if spirituality isn't a pigeonhole? What if it isn't this clear idea of something metaphysical, something ethereal? But what if it is this idea that it's also science? It's also this other, like, it's all these other things that we like to use as a counter, without realizing it's all the same. That to take care of yourself spiritually is to take care of yourself psychologically, to take care of the fullness of finding what it is to connect with the universe, however that is mirrored in the fulfillment found in the validation of education and in that validation of logic, And to go from that here in the basement of my house, to realize, okay, I'm going to grow some mushrooms. I'm going to use these laws to legally connect people with these natural medicines, and hopefully open up people's mind, open up people's hearts. Whatever the wellness they find isn't for me to decide. The universe is going to figure that out. But I sure as hell did not make, a cup of tea with the idea of, okay, connect me with my ancestor. That was a cup of tea that I drank kind of not begrudgingly, but the taste isn't great because I don't want to be depressed. But then to have that be the moment that said, okay, Dez, are you listening? Now we're February, March, April, May. So we're 15 months into the Colorado Psychedelic Church, 15 months of building community, of connecting people with spirituality. And I don't have to preach I don't have to proselytize. I don't have to sit down and force someone to sit in front of me and say, this is the way the universe is. All I have to say is, here's a tool. This tool has education that comes with it, because without it, it's a weapon and you're going to hurt yourself. But to recognize that this tool can open the door to this unbound, unending source of knowledge and clarity. And all you have to do is take care of yourself, go through that, and then integrate. How simple. How simple. Because in that one, simple motion, you're going to be able to start finding that spiritual wellness of okay, there is something out there and I'm connected to it, as well as, again, that psychological wellness of, and my depression can go find somewhere else to be. Yeah.
And a church was born.
Church was born. The church was born.
So you've kind of touched around the edges of it, but how do you define spiritual?
I would say spiritual is what your connection is with the unknown. Period, full stop. Period, full stop. And that means that what is the unknown in space that we can't ever get to? Well, we have science and we have logic to kind of build an idea of what that is. That's faith. That's spiritual. That's spirituality. That's just as valid as the idea that I am a who and a what, or that there's something above me or beneath me or something beside, whatever it may be. Spiritual is the I don't have a clear answer, so how can I find one? And maybe the difference there specifically with spirituality is an acknowledgement that we have to kind of silence the ego a little bit to recognize that answer is going to exist with or without us.
Right.
We can't necessarily create that. We have to find it.
And that's very much the definition I kind of use on this podcast, because I want people to understand that, spirituality is far beyond our religious dogma or doctrine, whichever side you want to approach it, because it's bigger than ourselves and it's smaller than ourselves. That's what's so wild. And that's why, we were talking, before we started recording about the connection of the physical and the spiritual. To me, it's like you start studying quantum physics and you're realizing how small the universe really is. But then you also look at astrophysics, and it's like how big the universe is. And the universe keeps getting bigger, but it keeps getting smaller. And somewhere in between all of that material is something. And that something has to be the spiritual. And the more that all comes together, I think the more we start to really grow as human beings.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like the human nature to find and plug answers in. Right. Regardless if they fit. So it's reclaiming that sense of wonder almost by finding our spirituality and sharing that and helping other people realize that it doesn't need the rigidity, right? It doesn't need the dogmatic rigidity of a structure. This has been around religion. Spirituality is personal. I'd be very mindful of somebody else who's telling me what my message from the universe is. I think that's a big red flag.
We did a recent episode in this podcast where I interviewed Lauren Axelrod, and the topic was experiencing kind of duality. I think that was what we called it, but it was the basic premise of it was she had a friend who had a stroke and was left with, she could only say two words, fuck and wow. And her friends were all concerned about it. And she's like, no, this is incredible. This is awesome. I mean, and we just kind of talked about the whole expression, how those two words, how spiritual those two words can be if you really approach it the right way. And I'm going to try not to say it too many times so I don't have to bleep it out more than once. But, yeah.
It's something we talked about here in the space. So one of the accessible natural medicines here is dimethyltryptamine, the spirit molecule, right? DMT is awesome. And I mean that word literally. Like, have you ever been struck by actual awe? Like to stop and to look at something or to perceive it at the very least, colors, motions, a connection, a vibrancy, a resonance, whatever it is, and to be truly awestruck, that's a word I tell people. I want you to think about how casually, that's awesome. No, I want you to truly experience awesome.
So how important is it to have that spiritual connection or the psychological? Because I think we can look at kind of the physical, if you call psychological physical. I think psychology kind of fits in the middle of that psychology, spiritual, physical science. But how important is it to have that connection, whether it be spiritual or some physical connection, when you're partaking of psychedelics? Because, I grew up in the 70s, and I had, they weren't necessarily friends of mine, but I went to high school with a lot of people that, were talking about shrooms, man. But they were taking it without any kind of direct purpose. It was just the trip.
Yeah.
And, when talking with Neil Markey, I mentioned before, from Beckley Retreats, he talks about using it really therapeutically. Yeah. And I think, from the spiritual side, you're doing the same thing with the church. But that it's important to do it in a controlled setting and not just simply, because not everybody's going to, have that realization like you had when you just stepped into the forest with your ancestor. Exactly. Some people can take too much and then just totally freak out and not know what to do, and it can cause them harm.
Yeah. It's, this is kind of a hard line to look at, right? Because on one side of it, we have to have structure. We have to have safety. We have to make sure that people aren't just taking, I'm going to take 4 grams and go for a walk. No, you are not. Absolutely not. But again, that we say that this needs to be sterile and clinical and or this has to be ceremonial. This has to be done with a guide, and this has to be, that's the hard part there, because making sure that people build this connection with this medicine, and a part of that connection has to be the respect and the understanding of, like, you can't just do this willy-nilly, that you have to, on some level, approach it with reverence. Here in our space, we talk about revelry. We don't trip, we don't get messed up, we revel. We look at our existence and do exactly what we're meant to do. Enjoy it. That doesn't mean partying. It can. Right. It absolutely can. Like, let me stress that. Like, take some mushrooms, put yourself in a safe place around the right people, and have a little party. Absolutely. But revelry can look like meditation. It can look like you and I crying over tearing open old wounds and talking about some hard things to know in our heart that at the end, they're going to be healed. Like, revelry doesn't always feel good, but it's always a step in the right direction. We're repairing the who, we're repairing the what. We're sitting down and making sure that we're putting purpose behind it. So I think maybe that's, if I had a side on one side of it, yes, you have to have intention. You have to have purpose, right? But I want to make sure that people understand that also, just like your spirituality, that can look like what you want it to be. I don't think there's a lot of respect to be shown taking 6 grams of mushrooms and going out, to the mall to walk around and see all the colors. No, that's not reverence, right? But if you tell yourself that maybe you want to go out for a hike, or you want to go get comfortable in your bed, or you want to sit down in a nice lotus pose and meditate, I don't care. Like, if you're doing it right, you're doing it safe. That's the right answer.
So it sounds like purpose and reverence are the two key components to doing this right.
Absolutely.
Again, whether you're doing it for psychological purposes or doing it for spiritual purposes or just doing it for, personal relaxation and,
revelry. Yeah.
Cool. So how you define your community as a community of pack life, and the pack is an acronym. What do you mean by this?
Yeah. So the first part is that we're social creatures. We evolved from pack animals. We have no claws, no fangs, we have no fur, we have no scales. So how did our ancestors look at this world and survive? Together. They did it together. They looked at each other without the ability to form words and said, huh? And you looked at me and went, huh? And we both knew that went hungry, and you went together, and we both went out there. We are pack creatures. And what does that provide us? Protection. There's safety in numbers, not just from the without, but from within. As we become close, as we have lost our connection with people and community, we've lost the safety net of having people able to recognize when we're stumbling or falling, even when we don't recognize it. People don't wake up lost in the void of their depression or their anxiety. That's a process. And for people to be isolated and to not be around others who would normally say, hey, are you okay? And having that be the thing to be like, oh my God, no, I am not. That's that protection aspect, but there's also passion, there's power, there's this ability to know that in returning to who we are, we're regaining this. Now we have acceptance. Here, it's not blind acceptance. It's, the idea that we're building a garden. This is peace. And peace isn't found. It's cultivated. It's worth protecting. It's worth putting boundaries. It's worth weeding, So acceptance isn't blind. it's done with accountability. It's done with an acknowledgement that you are going to be held accountable, right? It's about making it accessible. Here we value communication. Being social creatures, we're designed to talk. Are there hard conversations? Absolutely. Do you think in 15 months I haven't had to have that talk with someone of, hey, you're really messing things up right now? And to not say that in a place of hate, but to say like, I'm worried for you. I know you can do this. Like, what can we do? To have that conversation, even if it's awkward, it's important because it's done with compassion. It's done with that recognition that is someone I'm supposed to cooperate with. All of these things allow us to live a life that lets us act on moments of kairos. Now, kairos is a Grecian term referring to an opportune moment. It's not like fate. It's not like destiny. These things are a little too, you're a passenger in your own life for me, if I'm going to be honest. The miracle of my existence, the miracle of your existence, of all of us, the idea that any of it's predetermined kind of cheapens it. So what is kairos? Kairos are these opportune moments. Millions of years of momentum and motivation, millions of years of people's ambition saying, okay, it's your turn. What do you do? So even this conversation right here, if I look at the first email being like, oh, I'm really busy, I'll get back to that later, and I never do. Or your end, or whatever it is. I mean, the weather could be really bad and the power could go out and this couldn't happen. Whatever it is, all these things lined up to make this moment right here happen. Because what if this here is the thing that gives somebody out there a moment of clarity? It's like, okay, you know what? Healing is possible. Okay, maybe things are getting better. Maybe despite all of the hate and the malice in the world, there are people out here who want to have the right kind of righteous fire to stand against this. And what if that gives somebody strength? This kairos can save lives. And all of that together is pack life.
Cool. I like it. And I like that the letters aren't just this forced, okay, pack sounds good, so let's come up with, a word that fits all these. That you have this stack of words that all kind of spell to that purpose and kind of all lead to that kairos. So that's kind of cool. And I like that principle, kairos, because I have a blog. It's called Carpe Memento. That it's really just focused on my belief that we are where we are in this moment. Whatever happened in the past brought us here. That shit doesn't matter. That it's all about what are we going to do now with this circumstance that I'm in and what's going to happen next.
There you go.
And it's one reason, like right now, so many people are so stressed out over all the stuff, and positive or negative, whichever side of the political aisle you're on or not on, there's so much stress about what's going on in the country. And I'm like, oh man, this is good because it's leading to something. We are going to have a big awakening in this country if we just pay attention and we just start looking at each other and say, how can I help one another?
Yeah. And, doing this with good boundaries, doing this with good accountability, doing this allows us to extend this garden, on kind of a national level. I mean, a lot of people are scared and hurting right now. A lot of people are. And you know what? I think that they're right to be. I'm a gay Mexican Jew. I have, my whole life has definitely been one on the receiving end of whatever slur you can think of for those three categories. My place right here, right now, my stance is very loud. And that is, I am offering healing as an act of defiance to everything that would make sure that you stay frail, right? And that healing, be it psychological or spiritual, will allow you to become empowered. That is so important right now. Building these communities, connecting people with spirituality they don't realize they don't have, but is inside of them already. I mean, imagine finding out today that all of us had wings and we just couldn't see them. That we've been able to fly this whole time, but we've been told so often that the idea has just never crossed our mind. Yeah.
You just gave me a horrible thought. I was like, if you told somebody, so a gay Mexican Jew walks into a mushroom bar and starts a church. And people are like, okay, what's the punchline? No.
That's a headline. It's a headline. It's on CBS right now. Check it out. Look it out. I'm happy to see that all of this, the talks of spirituality, the talks of psychedelics, the talk of all this is becoming more normal.
Yeah.
Right. Where we're destigmatizing it. Even the idea of alternative spirituality outside of like more traditional, with no disrespect, traditional theology. When you say that you have a personal faith or something that is not traditional, there's always the like, oh, kind of the like the little side smirk. But now we really have this idea that like, oh, cool. Like either maybe I want to know more or I don't. It's not a like, oh, cool, whatever. It's like, oh, that's neat. There is this radical acceptance over the past few years of people who are saying, what if we just open our mind to these different ideas? And finding our allies, our brothers, our sisters, our kin, who are finding their spirituality, finding things through, be it through meditation or through psychedelic mushrooms. That's making the world better and greeting them.
Right.
We're seeing such a good sense of unity. And I do have to thank all this hate in a weird way. I have to thank all this fire and all this hate because it has shown us that we need to look at each other as kin, to draw good boundaries, but to realize, what do we have in common? Do neither of us have, malice in our heart? Then let's work together. Let's share our spirituality. Let's grow, right? And in a place here where people are told specifically, the universe's message for you is personal, so your message is not going to be like anybody else's. And then to watch people share it, okay? To watch people share their individual faiths in this space and never once have it like cross into proselytizing. Oh my God. It tells you the growth. It tells you the growth of our like general acceptance of all of this.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. That's what my social media director says. What a time to be alive.
It actually is. It really is. It's got its moments, but, without and I teach exercise science, so, I'm always going to kind of the exercise physiology references to growth and stuff like that. And without overload, without the tension in life, there's no growth. If we don't stimulate ourselves, if we don't push ourselves beyond our normal boundaries, yes, what are we doing here? There's no growth. And so we have to have those, social struggles. We have to have, the hurts in our lives so that we look at ourselves and look at others. And, I mentioned my friend Jay, who gave me the SPIES acronym. He could have looked back in our history and said, that guy was an asshole in school. I don't want to have anything to do with him. But the reality was he couldn't even remember. He was like, first time we had a phone conversation after probably 40 some odd years. He's like, now I'm trying to remember, were you one of those persons that, you weren't one of those people that picked on me in school? And I'm like, well, Jay, yeah, I kind of was.
Oh, no.
It was like, but, it was okay because it's like we're different people now. And we've both grown from that. And he's who he is, and I'm who I am. Yeah. Would it be nice to go back and not do some of those things? Yeah, it'd be great. But there's a possibility that you're going to be different now and the world would be different. I often ask that question, what would you do if you could go back in time and change one thing? What would you do? And for me, it's like nothing, because if I change anything, I'm changing the trajectory of just so many different lives. Yeah. Yep. And so it's like, just accept where you're at now and move. Just don't be an asshole now. You could have been an asshole in the past, but don't be one now.
And how wonderful is it to look back at who you were and to be a little ashamed?
Yeah.
How wonderful is it to look back and cringe? Because that means that person is not who you are. That you can look at that person and be like, nah, dude, that's no. It's a really uncomfortable blessing.
Right. We need those uncomfortable blessings.
Yeah. Somebody told me it's growth is found in the discomfort of our existence.
It's a good quote.
And I was like, oh, I like that. That's pretty cool. It's definitely hearing a lot of good stuff to kind of plant seeds, kind of make you start thinking, I haven't thought of it in that direction or something.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, the point of this podcast is to kind of plant those seeds, get people thinking outside of their spiritual boxes. And I'm looking forward to having some, people that identify as atheists on there. One of my next guests was my old roommate when I lived in New York, and we went to a church together, and it was a church that, by many means people would classify it as a cult. It was a very legalistic church. And, we were there at the same time, and it took us to two very different places, but spiritually, we're both still very much on the same page. It's just, I still attend church. He doesn't. And, he's labels himself as an atheist, agnostic. And, I've come to believe in a much bigger God, so it's like, how do we get to these two different spots, but still kind of be in the same spot? And so,
well, see,
Oh, go ahead.
No. It's that. That's
Oh.
So it's interesting to see what people build with the same tools,
Right.
And especially when they build something that also works. It's different when someone's like, "Oh, you took this and made something traumatic out of it," unfortunately, or had something traumatic out of it. But I would be interested to know what people find. Like, if you had you personally, I mentioned Mad Libs. If you take time every day, you take 5 minutes a day to reflect on yourself, to kind of calm your mind. What do you call that? Do you call that prayer? Do you call that meditation? Do you call that cognitive behavioral therapy? Do you call whatever you call that active effort, it's that Mad Lib, plug it in there, but you're taking that active act of self-reverence, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what some of the things people have plugged into that, whereas you found a bigger God. And for me, I think your soul, that who you are, that is divinity. That is the closest thing that there is to divine. And when people come together, it resonates. So in that sense, I strongly believe that we create divinity. Does that mean that we create God? Maybe not as much, but we feel it at a concert. We feel it when we're watching something tragic, that sense of this mourning, this joy, this whatever it is simply too heavy for me to carry or create. But I feel it. Right. We're sharing this ethereal thing. So what if we take that for everything? What if we recognize that bond exists with or without the concert, right? With or without the tragedy? That is my plug-in, is that we create that. And I would love to know, finding somebody who is a little more disconnected. What is that plug-in? What is the I don't think explanation, but in your reality, in your world, what is that feeling? If it's just you're around people and it's dopamine, cool, science, logic, awesome.
Right.
What would you say is one of the most interesting things that you've heard in relation to people finding, connection with the divine?
One of the most interesting. I don't know. I have just so many different ones in there. I think, as you were talking, I just kept circling back in my head to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was a Jesuit priest and a paleontologist, and he wrote the book, The Phenomenon of Man. And I really kind of resonate with some of more of his theology, because it's consistent with what I've come to believe. And, I actually studied geology as an undergrad before I found exercise physiology. But he's famous for saying, we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Yes. That is literally. Yeah. That's truly, that is sums up kind of how I feel about that. That, you were a pilot. Right. You are piloting a machine, right? And that machine can get damaged and messed up. But to stop and recognize that you are impervious. Right. Oh my God, I like it. Yeah.
So I think that's probably the best answer I could come up with for your question there. But
that's a great one. That definitely clicks. That definitely connects.
So you also teach 3 universal truths. What are these?
Yeah. So our universal truths are what we kind of build the structure of our community around. These are the closest things we have to those core tenets of our faith. The first is revere the self. So again, you are a miracle in motion. All the things that could have erased you. I don't just mean you fell and bumped your head as a baby. I'm talking your great-great-great-great-grandparents. I'm talking every plague that missed your bloodline, every rusty nail that a barefoot missed, from your ancestors. These didn't happen. You were literally a miracle, and everything was kind of lined up against that happening. So to not revere the self, to not actively take care of yourself is almost a sin against the self, recognizing that you are worth self-reverence is the core foundation, right? And these are done in order to build upon. So we start with the self. You cannot serve from an empty plate. The second is to embrace the communal experience. Now we are, communal creatures. We're social creatures. We're meant to connect. Everything about this maverick, go out there and do it yourself, everything about the American dream of, the mountain upon yourself, the one-man army, is designed to keep you frail and weak and designed to separate you from the things that would empower you and connect you with success. To not embrace millions of years of evolution that said that you are meant to connect with people. There are solitary creatures in nature, right? And it's not to say that every person who doesn't want to be socially connected to people is wrong. No, but to say that there are animals that show that if it was in us to be solitary, we would be. We wouldn't have the need for social interaction. We wouldn't have a lot of who we are function. But we are kin, you and I, right? And people who out there who are listening to this, like if they have no malice in their heart, there's my number, text me. I'm your kin, I got you. That's how this is supposed to be. And everything that would divide us, everything that would separate us is there with intent. To embrace the communal experience is to say not just, we are kins, come here, but to say we are kins, come here because you're safe. Is that implication? Is to say that it is safe from things that would make you feel unsafe? The last that the universe provides. Now, the universe providing is the message that we talked about. It has a message for you in your language. Some people, that looks like traditional theology. We have people in our congregation who would say that, yeah, they're PAC members and Christians, or, they're PAC members and Buddhists. Killing our pride, swallowing our arrogance, acknowledging that in an ever-expanding universe, literally ever-expanding, is this what's designed to experience everything? Like, what kind of arrogance would you have to, agree and subject yourself to think that an ever-expanding universe, this is not? No. So then what wonders are there? What if, right? We can look at it like as simple as this. And this is when talking to people, when we talk about this is the most spiritual of our three universal truths. So people who are less spiritual, who are more on the atheistic side, this is what I tell people. Because it's like, universe, okay, cool. Then it's very simple. Is it nothing matters? Or nothing matters? That's it. We can look at the world with wonder. We can look at this universe with wonder. Or we could look at it kind of a bore. And why? If you're revering the self and acknowledging the miracle that is you, if you have people in your life that makes life worth living and makes life full of just joy, the universe has provided.
Right.
And in these three things, people have found their strength, found empowerment. It allows people the opportunity to find those things in their personal faith. Your body's a temple, revere the self. Do unto others, embrace the communal experience. And this is mirrored in a bunch of other places throughout, different theologies. Judaism, of course, the name of it skips my mind. There's a phrase, specifically, it's like the communal love, the communal good, and that's a part of faith, to recognize the strength of community. That is embracing the communal experience. These are not some new hippie, Dez took a bunch of mushrooms and made a bunch of stuff up. This is who we are. This is who we are, stripped of some of the dogma, stripped of some of the baggage, and to say at the reduction, these are the three things that help us kind of live good, live right. And it self-regulates. There's no pastor yelling down at you. There's no angry deity looking down on you. If we can teach people to take care of themselves, everything else just naturally builds.
Now, some would say that, you can kind of come to those same universal truths without psychedelics. But in your view, what role do psychedelics play in healing what you call the kind of spiritual sickness of our modern society?
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's so hard to think where to even start. Because it's one, the core of this is isolation. We have been disconnected. We have been so disconnected from each other physically, spiritually. We have been kind of trained and taught to look at one another as competition. If I'm unemployed and you're unemployed, we're competing for the same job, not looking at the idea that there should be more jobs, right? Everything about the scraps that were thrown, we're told to then pull scraps from other people. That sense of isolation is sold to us as a commodity. It's sold to us as a luxury, as a strength, despite the fact that every single person who would sell you this concept used a team of people to know how to sell it to you, right?
Right.
So what better way to combat that dedicated, that directed isolation than to remove the thing that isolates us, the physicality, Now, regardless of any spiritual connotation to it, psychedelics open your mind and make you feel connected because your brain is just firing. All these neurons, all these pathways, it is reminding us, with or without our acknowledgement of the lack of it inside of us, that we need that connection. That through these natural medicines, we suddenly are reminded that we are a boundless entity, not a constrained physicality. And that means that you are too, which means the only thing that divides us is a physicality in the same way that these, a camera or whatever. So we're connected, period, full stop. We're connected, not by blood, not even by faith, but by energy, by souls, by love, whatever you want to call it, whatever the word is that you plug into that. Psychedelics disconnect you from the physical part, which reminds you then that we're already connected. And once you feel it, you don't want to have that taken away. So whenever you go out there and you have a trip, when you have this moment of revelry, and you're like, I am a part of this universe, not in it, right? An integral part of it. Like you are somebody who impacts people's days. It makes you be like, I want to maintain that. I want to continue that. I want to grow like that. But to find the true nature of who we are in our existence, that connection, that desire to be a community, and to do that through these natural medicines. I think it's hard not to come out spiritual. I really do. I think it's very hard not to come out spiritual. And I think right now people need it. We need the anchors. We need the connection. Even if you do not want to, even if you 100%, you do not subscribe to anything metaphysical, anything, some mushrooms, a few hits of DMT, whatever it is, all of a sudden you're looking at people with that idea of like, oh, we are kind of family, aren't we? And, I think, like I said, it's hard to reject that there's magic, and I want people to find that.
And so there's been a lot of scientific validation of psychedelics for our mental health coming out in recent years. And finally, some of the freed up to do a little bit more research in the area and all that. And you talked about being a scientist. How do you distinguish between therapy and spiritual ritual?
Well, let's look at that in two different ways. The first side, let's look at that strictly legally. Let's talk about strictly legally. So therapy is performed by a therapist, a licensed therapist, somebody who has, received that licensing from some kind of board. Here in America, if you're receiving therapy, then it's going to be from, a clinician, a psychologist, LMSW, whatever it may be. A counselor provides counseling. And counseling is legally distinct in that it is not performed by a licensed professional in that sense here. Or, a licensed medical professional. Let me go ahead and clarify that. But I want to be honest with you. I want to be totally, totally honest with you. The number of people who have told me after an hour of spiritual counseling, of sitting down and opening up the heart, opening up some wounds, who have then said, oh, I would never do therapy. I could never do therapy. It would never work for me. This was great. This was fantastic. Same tools, different order. What's the difference between a brownie and a blondie? One has chocolate, one doesn't, right? Now, of course, that does open the idea that spiritual counseling in the hands of people who do not know what they're doing can do a lot of harm. Just like with these natural medicines needing the safety information to make them tools, not weapons, good intentions without proper training, without proper education, without proper, understanding can harm a lot of people. So the idea of people kind of performing spiritual counseling as a way to simply facilitate natural medicine without the understanding is, what are you going to do if somebody has not just like, a bad trip, but something traumatic comes up? Because something traumatic can come up. Are you able to handle that? Can somebody leave your space knowing that they are put back together? Because on the therapy side, you absolutely need to know how to do that. It's a part of your licensing. On the counseling side, you really should. But unfortunately, the expectation and the reality are different. So that's why I'm very mindful of when people say, oh, I found this new church. Just make sure you look into it. Make sure you understand. Even here, people want to sit down and say, okay, Dez, you say you have a psych degree. Where's it from? What was your GPA? Whatever. Let's talk. I got you. I'll stand by it. But I don't perform therapy. I am a pastor in that sense. I provide spiritual counseling. Now, if I worked in a church and I was the one running the food kitchen, and prior to this, I ran a high-end restaurant as a head chef, how awesome to have those skills to bring to a food kitchen. I'm lucky. The universe spoke to me through psychology and science. They spoke to me through psychology and science, and I'm able to today use those tools properly, legally, in this setting as a pastor. And I can be more real. I can be more honest. I think that's the big part too.
So can you talk about a specific ceremony or a moment where you witnessed really deep spiritual transformation through your practice?
Oh my gosh, yes. I can one instantly. Member of my congregation had some family visiting. This was about 5 months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago, because we had just started offering DMT as one of our offerings on Tuesdays. And so the father was hippie church. Oh, it's a cool hippie church. I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty cool hippie church. Yeah, man. And I don't think he was trying to be, malicious, but he was definitely like, I see you, dude. I'm like, I don't think you do, but okay. But it's okay. I greeted it with joy, because that's an opportunity right there. So we're all talking. We have Tuesdays are our primary gathering, which is the closest thing we have to a sermon. So every month we have a main topic, and then we talk about how it relates based on the week. So first week is the self, second week is your relationships, third week is the community, and a fourth week is a wrap-up. So this one was specifically about our relationships. We're talking, we're going through everything. It was a great sermon, really solid, and I said, okay, y'all, we're going to start prepping some DMT for some offerings if anybody's interested. And he's like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Now, I want to preface all of this, but this is one of those moments where I had to stop and be like, shame on me for my prejudgments. The gentleman, little heavier, kind of country, a little country, and little accent. And I don't know. I guess when he came in and his attitude was kind of, a little dismissive about things, I wasn't expecting it. So he's like, I'll try it. Well, cool. Let's talk. So I give him the safety spiel because I think he might have been the only person here who was actually here for the first time. And I tell him, I said, hey, have you ever done anything? He's like, no, but I can hold my liquor. I'm okay. Like it's okay. I'm like, okay. Like, so are you spiritual at all? That used to be okay. Well, get everything prepped up, explain how to do it. He takes a little hit, coughs it all out. Doesn't get anything out of it. I'm like, okay, so got to work on that. So this time what I want you to do is I want you to, as fast as you can, hold it. We're going to try to make sure we get that in there. I put ice. We got that all prepped for him. Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, moment of kairos. Okay, so get everything prepped up. We want to put a little extra in there to make sure that if you cough again, you still get some. So we put a little extra in there. But this time he doesn't cough at all. So he takes his full dose. Now, it's not a breakthrough dose, but it's enough. It's enough to get him going. 10 minutes later, of him literally comes up. He's really quiet. Really, it's like, okay. And I'm like, ooh, is he okay? Actually okay? And to go from very talkative to like, okay. People get their gifts. We're starting to wrap up. And to say that he pulls me aside, I don't mean like, oh, excuse me, Dez. I mean like head on the shoulder, like, can I borrow you for a second? As he's like actively kind of giving me a little tug. I'm like, I guess so. This is the part I always get a little choked up, so I apologize. So when he was growing up, he had mentioned that he was very into Norse mythology. That it was a thing for him, and he said that he found Thor. That he actually, or Odin, I forgot what it was. He said he actually found them. Like, he heard the voice. It was like, he said, welcome back. And, could not remember anything else. And I tell people, DMT can hit, 24, 48 hours for the pieces to kind of fall back into place. And he said that in his heart, he knew he connected with Odin, Thor, whatever it may have been. And it said the words. He heard the actual words, welcome back. It's like to watch. Here it comes, and I apologize.
It's okay.
To watch a grown man come in here, see this as fun, as a joke almost, but to leave, tears in his eyes, truly feeling reconnected with something he did not realize that he had lost. I worked mental health for 10 years, and in 15 months, I have watched the universe move people, like put people on better paths, connect people with things that they did not know they needed. And to watch a grown man leave here, red eyes, smiling like a child who has found a toy that he thought he had lost, that lives seared in my heart. And the beautiful thing is that this moment isn't isolated. Like, things like this have happened in this community. Things like this have happened literally right here on this carpet. Just people on their knees saying like that was so beautiful, or that they heard something, or they felt something, or they saw someone. Just last week during one of our DMT, or earlier this week during one of our DMT ceremonies, during a moment that through all the fractal, they said they saw a big dragonfly. And years ago, they had lost their first love, and he liked dragonflies, and said he hadn't thought about him in a while, because life. But said that in that moment, to see this big dragonfly come up and be like, I am, reveal itself and then fly off. That was just this week. To see this happen. Oh, I am lucky to realize that 3 years ago, I was able to save myself, but most people can't and don't have that opportunity. And here for 15 months, we have been able to do it again and again. It's not me doing it. It's us. This is ours, not mine. I am not the leader. I just lead. It's one of the skills I bring. I'm not above anybody. I'm on the exact same level as every single person in this congregation. But to watch, people always talk about core memories, like it's a child thing. As a kid, that kid's making a core memory. Like, we don't do that still as adults. And to watch people reclaim tomorrow here, amazing. I apologize.
No, it's perfectly fine. Usually it's me that's having those pause moments, and I have to kind of collect myself. So it's okay for the guests to do it as well.
We're meant to feel all of this: the joy, the fear, all of it. So I tell people to don't ball it up. Let it out. A good conversation is well lubricated.
There you go. So do you think mainstream religions like Christianity, Judaism, Islam have something to learn from the psychedelic spiritual movement, or is it a fundamentally different path?
There are direct references in Judeo-Christian faiths of people using psychedelics to commune with God. It has that concept of using these natural medicines to connect with the divine predates the hate of using these natural medicines to connect with the divine. There is so much to be learned. There's so much to be reconnected. But it also then goes back to the idea of, what is the faith that you're practicing? With no disrespect to anybody directly, it's the idea, are you Christian, or are you the faith of the person preaching their version of Christianity at you? Are you somebody whose religion preaches love, but you just sat through a sermon of who to hate, right? These natural medicine, these psychedelics, whatever may or may not be there above us, has these here for us to use. How arrogant is it to think that we know better? I'm going to sit here and, I apologize. I got to get my little tissues out.
That's okay.
I get the joy of all of this. The joy of all of this has just been amazing.
So looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of psychedelic spirituality in America? Is this going to be a reformation, a revival, or something else entirely?
This is the second psychedelic renaissance. This is right now. In the 70s, we saw and felt the communal joy, the communal healing that was made possible. And what was happening then? What would be happening in our country that would make us need to squash the idea that we are kin and that we're not supposed to be going out there killing each other? When we realized that there was an intention, and what that intention was behind killing the first psychedelic renaissance, then we can see why they're doing it again now, right? This will continue. This will grow, right? This is bringing too much healing. And I've made my stance very clear. There is nothing that will prevent me from connecting people with the healing that I have already done. Because I made a promise the day that I connected people with these natural medicines, and I said that this is not just hey, give me $20, here's your microdoses, good luck. This is me saying this is true alternative medicine to what is right now completely focused on profits. Completely focused on you deserving the luxury of wellness, be it through a prescription or somebody who has the audacity to put $2,000-$3,000 on ayahuasca or any of the natural medicines that are being offered here. This movement is going to become common One day our movement will have a necessity. There won't be a need to advocate, because in the same way right now, people are smoking cigarettes and we're picking up more momentum to get people comfortable with cannabis and the actual healing that can bring. We're working on that now. But there are obvious things happening politically that will show that shows that there will be pushback to make sure that this gets squashed again. We got to keep fighting, because now that people are finding their healing, they need to recognize that this is the time to fight for it. And as people out there recognize that healing is possible, this is something that, we can help bring. My goal for this is not to make this a Colorado thing. To not be the Colorado Psychedelic Church. My goal is to know that the Colorado Psychedelic Church is a part of like the greater congregation or the greater network of allied psychedelic churches, where, we can have one in Oregon, we can have one in Florida, we can have one in places where people need healing, which is everywhere. But of course, we have to do it legally. We have to make sure that the framework is there. Looking at a place like Florida that is actively working to restrict access to psilocybin because they'd rather see people dead than healthy. Florida's economy, you would think, runs on caskets and nothing else, because they're just hell-bent on killing their citizens. But if there was an avenue, then I'd be there. If there was anybody out there who was like, we want to push for this to be legalized here, Dez, can you bring people out to help? I got you. Hell yes. Because in what we're doing here, in the actual legitimacy of it, we're not a bunch of hippies showing up in the middle of Tennessee or in the middle of wherever being like, hey, we're here to fight for this. We're known. Our momentum is recognized. Our healing is validated. You don't have to like my message. You can't argue my data. You can look at me and think I'm just some, weird looking hippie. Fine. That's cool. I'm not here to have people like me. I'm here to remove a 50-year campaign against the demonization of these natural medicines and to show that right here, right now, and I mean this, there are people in my congregation who would not be here because they told me, Dez, I walked in here with a handful of pills in my pocket. Dez, I walked in here ready to say, if this doesn't help, I'm just going to go buy the ammo. There's one gentleman now who walks in every lounge night, big smiles. Everybody knows him. You would not recognize him the first time he walked in here, because the first thing he said to me is, I think I want to kill myself and I don't know really where else to go. And I'm like, why are you here? He's like, because you're a church and I don't know where else to go. And I was like, and I'm thinking, so you just Googled church, said, take me to the nearest one, and showed up at my doorstep? Kairos. Oh, I'm glad you're here, brother.
Really the case that he just Googled church and that was the first thing that came up?
I mean, if you Google church, wow. If you literally, we pop up on Google Maps. If you type in church nearest to me or take me to the nearest church and you happen to be around here, you will come here. We're not a church. We are a church. And Kairos brought, the universe brought this man here. And to now know that he's here every Friday now around his friends, hanging out, I've seen what it looks like. I've seen the hollow in somebody's eyes when if I don't intervene right now, you are going to go home and kill yourself. I've seen that, and I've seen what happens when people don't. So I've literally seen that light, that lack thereof here in this space, and to know that it's not just some, oh yeah, we're saving lives. We are actually, which means this can be done elsewhere, which means lives can be saved elsewhere. The second psychedelic renaissance is here to make sure that the only people who are leaving tomorrow are the hateful, the malicious, not the kind, not the frail who've been beaten because of their kindness. This is my righteous fight in all of this, man. To make sure the right people, the good people know that tomorrow belongs to you, right? And this is just a start. I invite people to come out. If people want to come out and you don't have the money for a hotel, we got places to sleep here in the church. If you need to come out and have healing, right? We've had people come from out of state. We've had people come from out of the country. We've done what we can to connect people and to make sure if the plane ticket is the thing that gets you here and you don't have another dime to spend, fine, I'll offer it to you. The service is for free. We already make the natural medicine for free. But if you're like, Dez, this DMT ceremony, the 4-hour retreat, this I think really would change my life. All I need is for you to write me a letter. Write me a letter that explains why you think it'll be good for you, because I just want to know that if you can give me that amount of energy, then I will give you everything you need to reclaim tomorrow.
And I'm going to end with that, because I don't think I could ask another question or give a concluding statement that will top that. So that's going to be final cut. I love that. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.